want to say welcome to Continuously Delivering, Managing, and Scaling Apps, a tour of Heroku. My name is Max Beiser, and it is my first Dreamforce. It's my first couple hours of Dreamforce. So thanks for coming to my talk. Yeah, there's a clap. Thank you for being gentle with me. I am a developer at Heroku, part of the Salesforce family, and today we're going to talk about what Heroku is. Has anyone heard of Heroku? Anyone used Heroku? You got a couple hands? Okay, cool. And some people who haven't. Well, Heroku is what's called a platform as a service. And what that means is that we help abstract away a lot of the pain of setting up your own infrastructure for your custom code. Another way to think about that is that it's apps and not ops. So on Heroku, we allow you to build your own custom software in popular open source languages and stacks and serve it to your customers on our platform and connect back to Salesforce. These are the 8 officially supported languages on our platform. That's Go, Java, Node, Clojure, PHP, Python, Ruby, and Scala. And if you are going to end up writing your own custom code and serving it to your customers, there really is a lot of inherent complexity. This slide is supposed to scare you, so if you're scared, it's cool. I'm your friend. We're here with you. But if you want to build your own app, you've got a lot of choices to make. You want to choose an infrastructure as a service provider. You have to choose a containerization engine, pick an OS, do storage, do logging, do monitoring so that if your site for some reason goes down, someone gets paged. And we at Heroku think that that's a lot of complexity that you don't really need to be focusing on. And so with Heroku, it's as simple as deploy, manage, and scale. Just a few quick stats. At Heroku, we're serving 13 billion requests a day. There have been over 6 million apps created on the platform, and there are over 150 add-on services in our Elements marketplace, which we're going to touch on here in a minute. But let's take a step back and think about what does it mean to deploy an app on Heroku. The first step is you want to start by installing the Heroku CLI. It's available on our Dev Center. Once you install that, you can create apps, you can log into the platform, you can add add-ons, you can do a number of different things. But when you create your first Heroku app, you can then push your code using Git to Heroku. And what Heroku is going to do is detect the type of app you're using, or you can specify using what we call build packs, which I'm going to touch on in just a sec. Once that's done, Heroku is going to set up the runtime environment. So this is a PHP app, so we're going to set up PHP and Apache. It's also going to pull in any other external dependencies that you have. This would be via Composer in PHP, NPM for Node, or Ruby gems. And then it's going to build that into what we call a dyno, essentially a container, and serve it to the web. And so in 2 steps, we have built a PHP app, and we have a URL down here at the bottom. We talked a bit about not just what it takes to build an app, but other things you're going to need in your app, like monitoring and logging and stuff. And all that really comes down to add-ons. Because a modern web app is generally not just the code you write, but the services you weave into your app. And so in a modern web app, you're going to need a database, and you're going to need full text search, or maybe you need monitoring, like I was saying, so someone gets paged if something goes wrong. You're going to need content delivery, or maybe email to let people sign in, or if they forgot their password. Really, you're just going to need all the things that modern software projects are going to require. And you can get that through Heroku add-ons. Heroku add-ons is best found in our Heroku Elements marketplace. This is essentially the app store for your Heroku app. And if you look up at the slide here, you can see down here in the bottom left, popular add-ons. That's where you'd find something like, say, a database provider like Postgres, or maybe Mongo if you really hate yourself. Maybe you want to add a button. A button is a way to do a one-click install of a Heroku app that will build it for you with one click. And also build packs, which allow you to extend the environment in your dyno. And that's what we use to detect that, say, you're running a Ruby app or a Node app. But we talked about the 8 languages that are officially supported on the platform. The build packs ecosystem gives you the ability to extend that with community-supported build packs. I, for example, am a big fan of Elixir and Erlang. Any Elixiristas out there? No? Okay, just me. Well, I have an Elixir app running on Heroku, even though it's not one of the officially supported languages. And it's done through a community-sourced build pack. And that gives you a lot of power to customize your app. But enough talk. It's time for a live demo to see if the demo gods are smiling upon me. Anyone want to deploy an app to Heroku? All right. Let's go ahead and bump that up a touch. So here's my terminal, and I'm going to make a new directory. I'm going to call it my Dreamforce app. I'm going to cd into that directory. I'm going to, oh, I already did change into it, excuse me. All right, so I'm going to start by building just the simplest Heroku app you can build, which just happens to be PHP. So I'm going to put some text into our index.php file. So I'm going to say, hello Dreamforce. It's nothing quite like typing with a bunch of people watching you to really bring down your speed. Okay, so now we have a really basic PHP app. We're going to go ahead and start a Git repository. And we're going to add that code. And we're going to make a commit. All right, so right now all we've done is build some really basic software and start a Git repo. With that, I'm going to create a new Heroku app. Now, if I want to, I can specify an app name, which has to be unique platform-wide. I'm just going to let Heroku choose one for me. So it created Aqueous Woodland 90175. Right now, that's just an empty container. There is no code there. So if we went to that, say, welcome to your new Heroku app, but there's nothing there. Let's go ahead and push our code to our new Heroku app. I want to point out that there are a number of ways you can do this. Everything in Heroku has 3 methods of interaction. There is our CLI we're using up here. There's also a web dashboard, if that's your preferred mode. And there's also an API if you want to interact with the Heroku platform programmatically. So when I created this app, the Heroku CLI created a remote for me called Heroku. So I can just git push Heroku master. And so as we saw on the slides before, it's going to pick up that it's a PHP app. It's going to bring in all my runtime and my dependencies, compress it, and launch it to our site. And so if we go back to Aqueous Woodland and we refresh, we have Hello Dreamforce. And we just deployed our first app to Heroku. Round of applause. There we go. Round of applause in the background. You don't need to applaud me. Applaud the software. And just to prove to you that this is not a canned demo, we can in fact, we'll go ahead and update our app. And we will go ahead and add that and commit it. And we can push it back to Heroku. And now when we refresh the page, it's going to take just a second because A, conference Wi-Fi, and B, because it has built that slug and is now putting it in a container, and we've updated our app, and you all are so nice, and thank you for listening to me. So one quick other thing I want to show you about Heroku, which is a bit more of the power of the CLI here. I'm going to go ahead and clear this, and we'll go ahead and create a second window down here at the bottom of my screen. And I'm going to go ahead and tail the logs. So with Heroku, you can have multiple dynos running, right? You can scale horizontally, have multiple boxes running, and have single unified login. And so I'm going to Heroku logs -t for tail. And so down here on the bottom of the screen, those are the logs coming from my one dyno I have running. But I'm going to go ahead and do a few things. I'm going to add an add-on, do Heroku add-ons create, and I'll do Heroku PostgreSQL as an add-on we can add. Most of our add-ons have a free tier. This is the free tier of the Heroku Postgres. And so I've now added a database to my app with one command. But let's say Oprah tweets about my Dreamforce app, because, you know, she does that. And I am expecting huge amounts of traffic. Well, with one command or one slider on our website, you can scale both vertically and horizontally to handle huge traffic spikes. So I'm going to do that real quick. I'm going to say Heroku. I'm going to type it, right? PS scale, PS being processes. I'm going to scale my web process, which is serving my web traffic, to, let's say, 50 dynos. So I'm going to have 50 different containers running this app. And I'm going to specify that it's going to be a standard 1x dyno. So I could specify a different type of dyno, which would allow me to scale vertically, allow me to add more memory to my container. Right? But with that, if you watch down here at the bottom, it's about to start going nuts, spinning up 50 containers for my web app. Here it goes. So I now have scaled horizontally. I have 50 containers running my simple PHP app. And that's all from one line on the command line. I also like to point out that Heroku usage is prorated to the second. And since I'm not Mark Benioff rich yet, I'm going to go ahead and scale this back down. Because even a second, that's 50 containers. So I will do web equals 0. And just like that, I've scaled my dynos back down to where I'm not getting charged on the Heroku platform. So that demo actually went pretty well, given how the demo gods usually treat me. But that's a quick tour of what you can do just from the Heroku CLI. That's a really basic look at the Heroku platform. So let's get back to our slides. I want to talk just briefly about Heroku data services. So along with being able to run your app, we have a really sophisticated suite of data offerings for you, including Heroku Postgres, which we just saw, which is, if not the largest, one of the largest fleets of Postgres running in the entire world. We offer Heroku Redis, Apache Kafka on Heroku, which if you saw the demo before me, you'll see a lot of parallels between the Salesforce event bus and what you can do with Apache Kafka on Heroku. And I want to give a special shout out to Heroku Connect, which is one of the main ways that we at Heroku tie back into the larger Salesforce ecosystem. Heroku Connect allows you to set up a bi-directional sync of your data in Postgres back to your Salesforce org. So you can send data from Salesforce to your Heroku Postgres or the other way. And in certain cases, it will not count against your API rate limit. It's really fantastic, and there is a booth about it right over there, right behind the Trailblazer community sign if you want to come talk to me about it. And lastly, I just want to touch for a minute on Heroku Flow. And the reason that I save this for last is that Heroku Flow and the pieces I'm about to tell you about really changed my life as a developer. So I don't honestly spend a lot of time in Salesforce. I spend a lot of my time, like we saw on the command line. I'm writing web apps, and I'm trying to help my business grow, that being Heroku. And in a world before Heroku Flow, we had production, which was sacrosanct, right? Don't break production. And then we'd usually have a staging environment where there'd be multiple developers trying to use the same space to test out different products or bugs they were trying to fix, and different stakeholders trying to get time on a staging environment. And Heroku Flow, for my team at Heroku, has really changed the way we work. And the first component to that is what we call review apps. Review apps are where you can connect your, say, GitHub repo to Heroku and say, whenever I create a new pull request on GitHub, spin up a new Heroku app, an ephemeral app that's different from our staging and different from our production, and gives QA engineers, it gives product people, stakeholders, a chance to look at the changes you're making in your own dedicated ephemeral Heroku app. So this is a GitHub pull request, if anyone's not familiar. And you can see a couple different things here that I want to point out. One is, over on the right side, there is a view deployment button. When I created this pull request, because that repo is connected to Heroku, it automatically spun up an Incon staging PR24 app that I can go check out off my local machine to avoid the works on my machine developer stance. But it also allows, like I said, other stakeholders to go check it out in a sandboxed environment. I'd like to also point out, down here at the bottom, there is a continuous integration on Heroku, where we at Heroku offer a CI product where when you push new code to GitHub, you can automatically build in a Heroku-like environment your tests to make sure you haven't broken the build. And as one last piece, with the squash and merge button, you can set it up where if a pull request gets merged into master, you can automatically deploy to, say, your staging environment as one final test ground before it goes live. And all that was really great. I mean, it really helped us streamline our workflow and get the most out of what we were doing as developers. But it really is important when it comes and dovetails with pipelines on Heroku. Pipelines on Heroku take that concept we were talking about continuous integration, continuous delivery, and gives it to you on the Heroku platform. So we have, this is actually the Heroku marketing actual pipeline from a couple days ago. We have on this left column all the work that me at the bottom here and some of my coworkers are doing, including CI status and links to the pull requests on GitHub. And then we have a staging pipeline that allows us, once we merge code into master, we can automatically deploy it to staging. And then we can promote to production. And what's important about promotion is, you saw even with our small PHP app from before, it takes a few seconds because we have to build what we call the slug, which is the compressed, minified version of your code that gets injected into a container. With promotion, you don't rebuild the slug. You simply take the slug that got built for staging and you inject it into new containers that get deployed to your production app. And so it makes deploying from staging to production nearly instantaneous. And that's really cut down on a lot of the time spent trying to guess who was working on staging or who was doing what. It allowed us to focus on what really mattered, which for me is the ones and zeros of the day-to-day. I'd also like to point out that a lot of this is available through the Heroku ChatOps product. So if your team uses Slack and deploys code, you can deploy from Slack via ChatOps. You can say, Heroku, deploy this branch to my staging environment, or Heroku, promote my staging environment, my staging app, my staging code to our production environment. And that's really changed the way we work, because now it's not chatting with anybody saying who's pushing stuff to production. I type it in and deploy it from Slack, and it goes live, and my whole team has insight into what I'm doing. So to start summing things up, we talked a lot about some complexity of the modern infrastructure world, right? What you need to do to build your own custom web apps. And with Heroku, it's really just as simple as deploy and manage and scale. And that simplicity is what is really at the heart of the Heroku ethos of making developers' lives better. And with Heroku, you can really focus on doing what matters most to your customers, which is not setting up ops infrastructure. It is building software that helps make your customers' lives better. I do also want to point out that if you have questions or you want more information, we have www.heroku.com. We also have Dev Center is the home of our documentation, also a site I work on, so if it's broke, come find me and I'll fix it. And also we have, like I said, 2 booths that are just over there in the dev zone. If you want to come talk to me, we're also doing a Dreamhouse Disco playlist app as a demo. So if you want to come hear your favorite tunes, you can come join us there. And lastly, because it's my first Dreamforce, I just wanted to say thank you all very much.